I was eating cereal at my foster family's kitchen table when the social worker knocked on the door. Mrs. Henderson answered and I heard my name mentioned. 10-year-old me thought maybe my parents had finally come back. They hadn't. Your Uncle Robert wants to see you, the social worker explained. He's your father's brother. He's been trying to locate you since you entered the system. I didn't remember having an Uncle Robert. My parents had never mentioned family, never brought relatives to our apartment, never talked about anyone except themselves and their problems. The visit was scheduled for the following Saturday at a coffee shop downtown. Mrs. Henderson drove me there and waited in the car while I went inside to meet this uncle I'd never heard of. He was tall like my father but cleaner. His clothes looked expensive and his hair was combed. He stood up when he saw me approach his table. "You must be Sarah," he said gently. "I'm your Uncle Robert. Your dad's older brother. Why didn't I know about you? Your parents and we had disagreements about some things. I tried to stay in touch, but they moved around a lot and didn't want contact with family. Uncle Robert bought me hot chocolate and asked about school, about my foster family, about whether I needed anything. He seemed genuinely interested in my answers, which was more attention than my parents had ever given me. I want you to know that I've been looking for you since the day you were placed in care," he said. "It took my private investigator 8 months to track you down through the system. Why were you looking for me? As your family. Because you deserve better than what happened to you." He explained that my parents had taken money from someone and disappeared, leaving me behind. He didn't say how much money or who they'd taken it from, but his expression suggested it was serious. "I want to be part of your life if you'll let me," he said. "I can't undo what they did, but I can try to help moving forward." Uncle Robert became the most consistent adult in my life. He visited every other weekend, took me to museums and baseball games, helped me with homework over the phone, and made sure I had everything I needed. When Mrs. Henderson said the other foster kids were jealous of my rich uncle, I realized that Uncle Robert had more money than I'd understood. "What kind of work do you do?" I asked him during one of our Saturday outings. "I develop real estate. I buy properties, improve them, and either sell them or rent them out. I've been lucky with my investments." "Are you rich?" "I'm comfortable," he said with a smile. "More importantly, I want to make sure you're comfortable too." When I turned 16, Uncle Robert offered to pay for private school. When I graduated high school, he covered my entire college tuition. When I wanted to go to graduate school, he insisted on paying for that too. "This is what family does," he said whenever I tried to thank him. "We take care of each other." Throughout all of this, my parents never contacted me. Not a phone call, not a letter, not even a birthday card. According to Uncle Robert, they'd moved to another state and were still having legal troubles related to whatever money they'd taken. "Do you ever hear from them?" I asked during my senior year of college. "Occasionally. They ask about you sometimes." "Do they want to see me?" Uncle Robert's expression darkened slightly. "They ask whether you've inherited anything yet." "What does that mean?" "It means their priorities haven't changed much." I didn't understand what he meant until years later. After college, I got a job at a marketing firm in Seattle. Uncle Robert helped me with the down payment on a small condo, co-signed my car loan, and continued to be the supportive family I'd never had as a child. We talked every week, visited each other regularly, and he never missed important events in my life. When I got engaged to David, Uncle Robert insisted on paying for the wedding. "You're the daughter I never had," he said. "Let me do this." The wedding was beautiful. Uncle Robert walked me down the aisle and gave a toast that made everyone cry. My parents were not invited and did not attend. 2 years later, David and I bought a house. Uncle Robert contributed $50,000 toward the down payment. When our daughter Emma was born, he set up a college fund for her immediately. "I want her to have all the opportunities you didn't have when you were young," he explained. Uncle Robert was the perfect grandfather to Emma. He taught her to ride a bike, took her to the zoo every month, and read her bedtime stories when he visited. She adored him and he clearly adored her back. When Emma turned 5, Uncle Robert's health started declining. Diabetes complications led to kidney problems, which led to frequent hospital stays. I spent more and more time helping him manage his medical care and business affairs. "I need to update my will," he told me during one hospital visit. "I want to make sure Emma's future is secure, and I want to make sure you're taken care of." "Uncle Robert, don't talk like that. You're going to be fine." "I'm 78 years old with failing kidneys, Sarah. We need to be realistic." He asked me to help him organize his financial documents and work with his attorney to update his estate planning. I was shocked to learn the extent of his wealth. Real estate investments, stock portfolios, business partnerships. Uncle Robert was worth far more than I'd realized. How much? I asked his financial advisor. Approximately $18 million plus properties. 18 million? Your uncle has been very successful over the years. He owns commercial real estate in 4 states, plus residential properties and investment accounts. Who inherits all of this? According to his current will, you inherit everything except for specific bequests to charity. Emma gets a separate trust fund of $2 million. I sat down heavily. He's leaving me $18 million? Plus the house in Bellevue, the lake cabin and the commercial properties. He's been very clear about his intentions. Uncle Robert passed away on a Tuesday morning in March. I was holding his hand when he died, and his last words were, "Take care of Emma." The funeral was held the following Saturday. Nearly 200 people attended, business associates, neighbors, church members and friends from his community. Uncle Robert had been well loved and respected. My parents did not attend the funeral. The will reading was scheduled for the following Tuesday at the law offices of Morrison, Chin and Associates. I arrived with David and my attorney, expecting a straightforward process. I was not expecting to see my parents sitting in the waiting room. I hadn't seen them in 27 years. Dad looked older but still had the same shifty expression I remembered from childhood. Mom had gained weight and was wearing clothing that looked expensive but didn't fit properly. "Sarah." Mom stood up and approached me with her arms outstretched. "Oh honey, we've missed you so much." I stepped back. "What are you doing here?" "We're here for Uncle Robert's will reading," Dad said. "We drove up from Phoenix as soon as we heard about his passing." "How did you even know he died?" "We've been keeping track of family news," Mom said. "We knew you two were close." My attorney leaned over and whispered, "Did you know they were going to be here?" I had no idea. The estate attorney, Mr. Morrison, called everyone into the conference room. Besides my parents, David and me, there were representatives from 3 charities that Uncle Robert had supported. "We're here to read the last will and testament of Robert William Chin," Mr. Morrison began. Mr. Chin was very specific about his intentions for his estate. He read through the charitable bequests first. $500,000 to the Children's Hospital, $300,000 to the Diabetes Research Foundation, $200,000 to the local food bank. Then he got to the main estate. "To my beloved niece Sarah Chin Williams, who has been the daughter I never had and the light of my later years, I leave the remainder of my estate, including all real estate properties, investment accounts and personal belongings. The current value of this bequest is approximately $18 million. My parents exchanged glances. "To my great-niece Emma Williams, I leave a separate trust fund of $2 million, to be managed by her mother Sarah until Emma reaches age 25. Mr. Morrison continued reading specific details about the properties and accounts, but I was focused on my parents' expressions. They looked expectant. When the reading concluded, Mr. Morrison asked if there were any questions. Dad raised his hand. "What about the family provisions?" "I'm sorry, what do you mean?" "Well, Robert was my brother. Sarah's my daughter. Surely there are provisions for immediate family members." Mr. Morrison looked confused. Mr. Chin was very clear about his beneficiaries. "Sarah inherits the estate." "But we're talking about $18 million, Mom interjected. "That's too much money for one person. Family estates should be shared among family members." Mrs. Chin was very specific about his intentions, Mr. Morrison said carefully. "The estate goes to Sarah." "We'll need to contest this," Dad announced. $18 million should be divided among Robert's surviving relatives. Sarah can have the largest share, but his brother and sister-in-law should receive portions as well. I stared at them. "You want to contest Uncle Robert's will?" "We're not trying to be greedy," Mom said. "But family money should stay in the family. You get the majority, we get reasonable shares. Everyone's happy." "You abandoned me when I was 10 years old." "That was different," Dad said. "We were having financial difficulties and couldn't provide proper care. Robert could give you opportunities we couldn't. It worked out for everyone." "Financial difficulties?" "We made some mistakes with money that belonged to other people," Mom explained. "We had to leave town quickly and we couldn't take you with us. It would have been dangerous for you. So you just left me. We left you with people who could take better care of you," Dad said. "And look how well you turned out. College education, nice house, good job. Robert did right by you. And now Robert is gone," Mom added, "so it's time for the family to come back together." We've missed so much of your life and Emma's life. We want to be part of the family again. Where have you been for 27 years? We've been in Phoenix trying to rebuild our lives, Dad said. We always planned to reconnect once we got back on our feet financially. And now I've inherited $18 million, so you're back on your feet? Sarah, don't be cynical, Mom said. We're here because we love you and we want to be a family again. The money is just, well, it's an opportunity for all of us to have security. My attorney leaned over again. Do you want to continue this conversation? Before I could answer, Dad continued talking. We've already consulted with an attorney in Phoenix about family inheritance laws. When someone inherits a large estate, immediate family members have rights to contest the distribution, especially when they were excluded without reasonable cause. Excluded without reasonable cause, I repeated. Robert may not have understood our family situation completely, Mom said. He may have thought we didn't want contact with you, when really we were just waiting for the right time to reconnect. The right time being after he died and left me $18 million. Sarah, you're being hostile, Dad said. We're trying to have a reasonable conversation about family and money. Robert left you far more money than one person needs. Sharing it with your parents is the right thing to do. How much do you want? We're not being greedy, Mom said quickly. Maybe $4 million each for your father and me. That leaves you with $10 million plus the properties. Everyone's comfortable and we can all move forward as a family. $8 million. It's fair, Dad said. We're your parents. We have rights. Mr. Morrison cleared his throat. Actually, there's something else I need to mention. Mr. Chin anticipated that there might be challenges to his will, particularly from Sarah's parents. He opened another file folder. Mr. Chin asked me to prepare a letter to be read in the event that anyone contested the will or claimed that family members had been excluded unfairly. What kind of letter? My attorney asked. A letter explaining his reasoning for the distribution, along with supporting documentation. Mr. Morrison began reading. If my brother Michael and his wife Linda are present at this will reading, and if they are expressing surprise or dismay at being excluded from my estate, I want them to understand my reasoning. My parents looked uncomfortable. 27 years ago, Michael and Linda took $13,000 from a client's account at the construction company where Michael worked. When the theft was discovered, they fled the state, abandoning their 10-year-old daughter Sarah with no provision for her care. Dad's face went red. That's not exactly what happened. Mr. Morrison continued reading. They left Sarah alone in their apartment for 3 days before neighbors called social services. Sarah was found with no food, no clean clothing, and no information about where her parents had gone. We couldn't take her with us, Mom said defensively. It wasn't safe. The $13,000 they stole was meant to pay medical bills for an elderly client whose roof repairs had been completed. When Michael and Linda disappeared with the money, the client was left with unpaid medical debt and a roofing company that went bankrupt trying to cover the stolen funds. I stared at my parents. You stole money from a sick person? It was more complicated than that, Dad muttered. Mr. Morrison wasn't finished. Over the past 27 years, Michael and Linda have contacted me 4 times asking about Sarah's inheritance prospects. They have never asked about Sarah's well-being, education, or happiness. Their only inquiries have been about money. That's not true, Mom protested. I have recordings of those conversations, Mr. Morrison said calmly. Mr. Chin recorded all communications with family members to protect Sarah's interests. He opened a laptop computer on the table. This is a conversation from 2019, approximately 2 years ago. A recording began playing. Dad's voice was clearly audible. Robert, we know you've been supporting Sarah financially. We're wondering about estate planning. If something happens to you, we want to make sure we can step in and help manage whatever inheritance she receives. Uncle Robert's voice responded. Are you asking about Sarah's well-being or about her inheritance? Both, obviously. But $18 million is a lot of money for someone with no experience managing wealth. We're her parents. We should be involved in major financial decisions. How did you know the estate was worth $18 million? Well, we've been keeping track of your business success. We're proud of what you've accomplished. Michael, you haven't spoken to your daughter in 26 years. That doesn't mean we don't love her. Family is family, Robert. Sarah needs guidance with this kind of money. The recording ended. My parents sat in silence. There are 3 more recordings, Mr. Morrison said. Each one demonstrates that your primary interest has been financial, not familial. Play another one, I said quietly. The second recording was from 2017. Mom's voice. Robert, we've been thinking about reconnecting with Sarah, but we want to make sure we approach this properly. If she's inheriting substantial assets, we don't want her to think we're only interested in money. Uncle Robert, are you only interested in money? Of course not. But we also don't want to be excluded from family wealth that Michael should rightfully inherit as your brother. Michael forfeited any claim to family consideration when he abandoned his child. That was 25 years ago, Robert. People change. We've learned from our mistakes. What have you learned? We've learned that family is more important than money. Then why is this conversation about money instead of about Sarah? Long pause. Then Mom, well, both are important. The recording ended. There's more, Mr. Morrison said. But I think the pattern is clear. Dad stood up angrily. Those recordings were made without our consent. They're inadmissible if we contest this will. Actually, they're perfectly admissible, my attorney said. Your brother had every right to record conversations about his own estate planning. We're contesting this will, Dad announced. Sarah can keep the majority of the estate, but we deserve reasonable compensation as immediate family members. On what grounds? Mr. Morrison asked. On the grounds that we're her parents and we have legal rights to family estate assets. You surrendered your parental rights when you abandoned her. We never formally surrendered anything. We're still her legal parents. Mr. Morrison opened another file. Actually, Mr. Chin initiated legal proceedings to have your parental rights terminated in 1995, a year after you abandoned Sarah. The court granted the termination due to abandonment and failure to provide support. He handed my parents a legal document. You are not Sarah's legal parents. You have no legal relationship to her whatsoever. You have no standing to contest this will. My parents stared at the document. This is impossible, Mom said. You can't just terminate parental rights without notifying the parents. The court made extensive efforts to locate you for the proceedings. You had moved and left no forwarding address. After 6 months of unsuccessful attempts to serve you with legal papers, the court proceeded without your participation. We never knew about this, Dad said. Because you disappeared, I said quietly. You stole money and ran away and you never looked back until you heard about an inheritance. Sarah, that's not fair, Mom said. We were young and scared and made mistakes. People deserve second chances. You've had 27 years of chances. Where were you when I graduated high school? When I got married? When Emma was born? We didn't know how to contact you. Uncle Robert was listed in the phone book. His business was listed online. You could have found me any time you wanted to. We were afraid you hated us. I didn't hate you. I didn't think about you at all. Uncle Robert was my family. Dad sat back down heavily. So we get nothing? After everything we've been through. What have you been through? 27 years of guilt and regret about leaving you, Mom said. 27 years of wondering how you were doing and hoping you could forgive us someday. But not 27 years of trying to find me or contact me or be part of my life. We were building new lives in Phoenix. We couldn't just drop everything and come back here. Why not? Because. Mom looked at Dad uncertainly. Because we had legal problems here. Because people knew what we'd done. So you stayed away until Uncle Robert died and left me $18 million. The timing is coincidental, Dad said weakly. Is it? When did you first contact Mr. Morrison about the estate? Mr. Morrison checked his files. They called my office the day after Mr. Chen's obituary was published in the Seattle newspaper. The day after, I repeated. We wanted to make sure we didn't miss the funeral, Mom said quickly. But you did miss the funeral. We couldn't get flights in time. But you got flights in time for the will reading. My parents had no answer for that. We're still going to contest this, Dad said finally. $18 million is more money than anyone needs. Family should share family wealth. You're not family, I said. You're strangers who share my DNA. Sarah, please, Mom started crying. We know we made mistakes, but we're trying to make things right. This money could help us rebuild our relationship. Relationships aren't built with money. But money can remove barriers, Dad said. If we're financially secure, we can focus on being a family again instead of worrying about survival. You've been surviving fine in Phoenix for 27 years. We've been struggling. We've never recovered financially from the mistakes we made when you were young. What mistakes? You mean stealing $13,000 from a sick person? It wasn't like that, Dad said. The money was sitting in an account and we borrowed it temporarily. We planned to pay it back. With what money? We had plans. Investments that didn't work out. So you gambled with stolen money. We made bad decisions. Young people make bad decisions. But we've learned from those mistakes. Have you? Because right now you're trying to take money that doesn't belong to you. This is different. This is family money. No, this is Uncle Robert's money. He earned it and he chose how to distribute it. Dad stood up again. We'll see what the courts say about that. The courts will say the same thing Mr. Morrison just told you. You have no legal standing to contest this will. You're not my parents, legally or practically. We'll find a way, Mom said. $18 million is worth fighting for. And there was the truth they'd been dancing around all afternoon. You're not here because you want a relationship with me, I said. You're here because you want money. We want both, Mom insisted. No, you want money. If you wanted a relationship, you would have contacted me years ago. You would have been at my wedding. You would have sent birthday cards. You would have asked to meet your granddaughter. We can still do all of those things, Dad said. Starting now. Starting with sharing this inheritance so we can all move forward as a family. I don't want to move forward as a family with you. Sarah, please be reasonable. We're offering to share this wealth and rebuild our relationship. You get $10 million plus properties, we get financial security, and Emma gets grandparents who can contribute to her future. Emma has never needed grandparents who disappeared for money. She needs grandparents who can help pay for her education and her future, Dad said. $10 million is enough for you. $4 million each for us is reasonable. No. We'll contest the will. Go ahead. You'll lose. We'll hire the best lawyers we can find. With what money? Dad's face reddened again. We'll find a way to pay for legal representation. You'll take out loans against an inheritance you're never going to receive. Mom leaned forward desperately. Sarah, honey, please think about this practically. We're your biological parents. We have rights. Courts don't like to see family members completely excluded from large estates. You excluded yourselves when you abandoned me. We've explained the circumstances of that situation. You stole money and ran away. We made mistakes 27 years ago. How long are we supposed to pay for those mistakes? How long did you expect me to pay for them? The room went quiet. I spent 7 years in foster care because you made those mistakes, I continued. I aged out of the system at 17 with no family, no money, and no support except for Uncle Robert. I worked 2 jobs through college because I didn't want to burden him with more expenses than necessary. I've spent my entire adult life being grateful for basic family support that should have been automatic. We're sorry, Mom said quietly. Are you sorry for abandoning me, or are you sorry that your abandonment cost you $18 million? Both. That's honest at least. I stood up. Mr. Morrison, what do my parents need to do to contest this will? They would need to file a petition with the probate court within 90 days of the will being read. However, as I've explained, they have no legal standing to make such a petition. What if they find a lawyer willing to take the case anyway? Any lawyer who reviews the documentation will advise them that they have no case. Their parental rights were terminated, they have no legal relationship to the deceased, and they've been explicitly excluded from the will with clear reasoning. And if they find a lawyer willing to take a hopeless case for money, the case will be dismissed, and they'll be responsible for court costs and possibly attorney fees for the estate. I turned back to my parents. Do you understand that? If you contest this will and lose, you could end up owing money to Uncle Robert's estate. We understand the risks, Dad said. But $18 million is worth the risk. It's not your $18 million. It should be partly ours. Why? Because we're family. You're not my family. You gave up that role 27 years ago. I picked up my purse and headed toward the door. David followed me. Sarah, wait, Mom called. Please don't leave like this. We can work something out. There's nothing to work out. What if we asked for less money? What if we just wanted enough to be comfortable? How much is enough to be comfortable? 2 million each? No. 1 million each? No. 500,000 each? You're negotiating for money from someone you abandoned as a child. We're trying to find a solution that works for everyone. There is no solution that works for everyone. Uncle Robert made his decision about who deserved his money. I agree with his decision. Sarah, please, Dad said. We need this. We're getting older and we don't have retirement savings. This money could make the difference between security and poverty in our old age. You should have thought about retirement savings 27 years ago. We've struggled financially ever since we left Seattle. We've never been able to get ahead. That's what happens when you steal money and run away. We've paid for our mistakes. Not as much as I paid for them. I reached the door and turned back one more time. If you contest this will, you'll lose everything you've spent on legal fees and you'll never hear from me again. If you walk away now, you'll never hear from me again anyway, but at least you won't be broke. Sarah, don't do this, Mom pleaded. We're family. Family should forgive each other. Family should also not abandon each other for money. We didn't abandon you for money. We abandoned you to protect you. You abandoned me because taking me with you would have made it harder to run away with stolen money. I walked out of the law office with David and my attorney. My parents followed us to the parking lot. Sarah, please, Mom called. Think about Emma. She deserves to know her grandparents. Emma deserves grandparents who didn't steal money from sick people and abandon their children. We've changed. Have you? Because an hour ago you were demanding $8 million from an estate that doesn't belong to you. We were trying to be practical about family finances. You were being greedy about someone else's money. I got in my car. David got in the passenger seat. Through the window I could see my parents standing in the parking lot looking lost. Dad approached my window. I rolled it down halfway. This isn't over, he said quietly. We'll find a way to contest this will. $18 million is too much money to walk away from. That's exactly why Uncle Robert left it to me instead of you. I drove away. In the rearview mirror, I could see my parents standing next to their rental car, probably trying to figure out how to pay for lawyers they couldn't afford to fight a case they couldn't win for money they were never going to receive. 3 months later, I received notification that my parents had indeed filed a petition to contest Uncle Robert's will. Their lawyer withdrew from the case 2 weeks later when they couldn't pay his retainer fee. The petition was dismissed for lack of standing. Uncle Robert's $18 million went into trust accounts that would fund Emma's education, support various charities, and provide me with financial security for the rest of my life. I used some of the money to establish a scholarship fund for children aging out of foster care. My parents never contacted me again after the case was dismissed. I assume they went back to Phoenix to continue their lives of financial struggle and poor decisions. Emma asks about her other grandparents sometimes. I tell her that some people make choices that prevent them from being part of family, and that the people who choose to stay and love you are the ones who matter. Uncle Robert had been right about everything. Family isn't about biology. It's about showing up, caring for each other, and putting love before money. He'd shown up for me when I needed him most. I'll spend the rest of my life making sure his legacy shows up for other people who need family.